Hello and welcome to Walk and Talk. The date on the Anlian calendar is 5/4/2/1441, and that means the date on the Gregorian calendar is Monday, November 25th, 2019. And I would like to talk about the camp parable. Now, I've been quiet about the camp parable on YouTube, not so much on Facebook, because Facebook seems like a better place to say these things. It's got no character limit. You can post photos, videos, and text, which makes it open to my unique formulas. I hardly ever use Twitter. Twitter's just these short pieces. Also, Facebook has all my friends on it. I've been known to shut down my communications when I get an influx of unfamiliar people looking at my stuff. Actually, I haven't been known, but I know myself to do that. Not that I don't have unfamiliar friends. I have a few on Facebook. Twitter is a much worse place than YouTube for my political philosophy because of the character limit, but also because to be up on politics, followed every political leader in the United States right now, or that resided over me right now, and I do not like most of them. My political leaning is social democrat, right? But I find much more important the camp parable. I find the camp parable much more important than how the government, how much power the government or the corporations has. And I'll get to that in a moment. I have been squeamish to call the camp parable a political philosophy, even though it is the foundation of Anlia, which is my ideal society. I always thought political philosophies had to be doable. They had to be able to be put in place in your current place. Whereas Anlia couldn't really be put in place in the United States because it requires water for its infrastructure, or it requires to be floating on water for its infrastructure to work. It would not get a majority of votes, which, if that didn't mean it wouldn't make it possible here, then it would be highly immoral to put it here. But apart from that, I've decided this is a political philosophy, because political philosophies don't have to be doable in this place. I've been following a bunch of anarcho-communists, and they say that you could never get to their system by the form. So if I have something that you can get to by revolution, it can still be a political philosophy. So the thing is, though, despite Anlia requiring that you move out onto the water, requiring that I move out onto the water, the camp parable does not require that. It's actually the way my life is. And it has its birth in 2007. The camp parable is really often described as described as something to the nature of the way that my involvement in a camp tends towards a meltdown. And I've always had that sort of camp parable, but it's also something bigger than that. I have Asperger's syndrome, so the way in my specific brand of Asperger's syndrome I express my meltdowns goes as follows. My joints freeze up. I lose the ability to speak. And then the only things I can do are run or fight. I can't reason. And after a while, I can't sit frozen anymore because I get kind of a feeling that my body's flooding like a cabin on a sinking ship, and I just have to break out and run away or fight. I usually chose in 2007, when I was 11 years old, to run, and but the counselors would chase after me in these camps, these literal camps, as well as after schools. They would tackle me, and I would fight to break free. I would kick and punch and bite, and then because I hit the counselors, I would get kicked out of the camp. And since the reason I had the meltdown was because I was upset by something at the camp, that probably would have stayed there, probably would have lingered in the camp if I were to come back, and I got out of the camp, this was seen as a positive thing. I went to the I got to stay home for the rest of the week. I had 12 week-long summer camps a year, so there were a few more, and well, actually, I forget what I was going to say, but, however, this got me out of things. It was not willful, but it did get me out of the things I didn't like. So it felt like control over my own life. And at that time, my mom would be the one signing me up for the camps, and I would be the one getting myself out of them. So it felt like a good combination Oh no. Felt like a good combination of things. Or a good combination of control of different people. And however, I ran into a snag, and that was that my intention was to get kicked out of the camps that had rules I didn't like, and then I'd automatically be barred from the camps that had the same rules, and then I would end up going to and I would end up going to camps that I liked more and more. But what happened was, I had a meltdown in all of the camps I got kicked out of all the camps that I could get kicked out of, and the rest of the camps were either too stubborn to kick me out, and they were large organizations like the YMCA, or they were something for people with autism, and they would just sort of see a meltdown as a normal thing for someone in the camp, and I'd get some help and have to continue going there. And I started to come up with rules. Now, previously I did have a rule. I did have rules to try to protect camps from getting, I did have rules for Mom, who was sending me to camps. But I didn't have rules for the camps themselves. And the rules for the camps that I came up with around the time that I created Anlia, or around the time that I started drawing pictures of Anlia, were that no camp could lock you in. They could only lock you out. This was very important, because it meant that if you committed a crime, you couldn't actually go to prison. If you committed a crime in the camp's view that wasn't in the normal society, they couldn't put you in the brig, per se. They couldn't put you in a timeout. They could just send you to some place that didn't have the same rules. Which means that if you disagreed with the rules, you could go to another place. And also Anlia had a system where the rules that you broke would end up on your record, and you could actually be banned prematurely from any camp. Camp being a school, after school, summer camp, or anything else. You could actually be banned prematurely for committing a crime that is illegal there in another SAC, which is the Anlian word for it, or which is what they call the official organization of a camp in Anlia. And the reason they wanted to make these lock out, not in, rules is partially that I was getting stuck in particular camps that I didn't like no matter how many meltdowns I had. And also was turning 16, which should mean that I'm liable for legal damages, or that I'm liable to be tried as an adult for any crime that I would commit under North Carolina law. And I knew that, you know, I still sometimes hit when I had meltdowns. So this was not an unreasonable, thing to say. Screw these big organizations. I want to get kicked out of everything that has this law that I broke. And the technology of Anlia followed. The way that the pins interlock without any additional infrastructure means that anyone can create a state, or anyone can create a sect. I know I was 17, so I was making sex jokes with the naming of the camps. Anyone could create a sect. Anyone, which stands for Secular Encompassing City, and later for Social Environment Capsule. Anyone can create a sect. Anyone can leave a sect at any time, and if you leave a sect, you don't compromise its structure. And that's the camp parable in a nutshell. Anlia is already in a video. Alright. See you in the future, Future Danny.